Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the June 8th Special School Committee meeting into session. And, thank you, sorry. First up, we have, do we have to go to executive for this? We don't, okay. So first up, we have, first agenda item is the MOA, Memorandum of Agreement from the Foxborough Education Association for clubs and activities. And with that, Dr. Barros, do you care to start us off?
Yes, so this evening we have it for information purposes only, just so that way it gives you a chance to digest it, and then if you have questions between now and next week's meeting.
Always
But we
appreciate
would need a vote for next week, and the purpose of this is MTRS, so the Massachusetts Teachers Retirement System, unless work has been done during the school year, is not pensionable for employees, and it needs to be listed in the collective bargaining agreement for teachers, any stipends they receive for running clubs during the school year, activities, something like the ski club, the chess club, those are things that take place during the school year. And they're listed under the high school, but they're not listed in the contract under the middle school. And as a result of that, MTRS says they're not pensionable, and then that's not advantageous to our employees. So and sometimes clubs and activities change from year to year, so to go in at the middle school in particular, so if we go through and list them all that take place, it's really not a good use of the contract and listing them because they change more frequently at the middle school based on needs. But again, we want to be able to have them pensionable for our employees. It's no cost to the town, it's no cost to us, but it is a benefit for the employees for their retirement once they get to that point. So you have a list of clubs here that are taking place, and a lot of them actually take place at the high school too and are listed under the high school, but they're not under the middle school. So MTRS has said that if we have a MOA that says, yes, this activity did take place during the school year, then it's pensionable for our employees. And this was one way to be able to make it right by our employees. Any questions?
Please.
I do have a question. So is this retroactive to the previous contract, or is this going forward to the new contract?
This is retroactive.
That's what it appeared to be. The way you've listed it is appendix to the 1922 contract.
Correct.
That's what I thought, but it had the June 22 date, so.
And so going forward, we'll most likely have to do this again for the next contract, the next 3 years, because we're not listing all of these under the middle school again. But it is one way to solve the problem of what takes place during the school year. It's legitimate work that takes place over the course of the school year. But we found with some, as you'll see at the next meeting, the number of retirees that we have 22 retirees this year.
Wow.
That's when it's really come to light, that it's impacted some of them when they go back and look at their last 3 years. So this was a way to solve the problem.
Any questions from the committee? Well, it
I think it makes sense.
does. No, I'm glad this is getting fixed. It's nice.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Are we able to move on?
Yes.
Lovely. Next up on the agenda is the main, the purpose of this evening's meeting is review of the superintendent's evaluation process, looking at both the process, evidence, and all things therein. Dr. Barros, whenever you're ready, you can guide us through.
So you know that this is one of your 3 functions as a school committee as far as my evaluation, and by regulation it has to be held publicly during a meeting. So this first evening tonight is going to be one of multiple nights. And I've included a number of things in your packet that will hopefully make it a little bit easier because it can be a very daunting task for you as school committee members. I think that the way that the regulations are set up by the 5-step process, it does help keep it from being so daunting when we think back to the goal setting at the beginning of the school year. Just as any teacher in the district, we go through the 5-step process, myself, Dr. Mello, anyone. And that first goal setting is what took place in September when you approved my goals, and that was based on the rubric and a self-assessment with our district goals in mind and what our district needs are. Those goals were based on that. I'm going to be a little bit redundant just because of the purposes of anyone listening to know the full process here, even though you're very well aware of that process. So after that goal setting process that took place back at the beginning of the school year, it also was accompanied by an action plan. What would be done by myself and the district as I lead the district to meet those goals, and then present that to you so you have some benchmarks to be able to see where those goals met. Then throughout the school year, we work to meet those goals. Not only am I evaluated on meeting those goals that are set out, which must be a professional practice goal, a student learning goal, a district goal could be 1 to 2, and then any other goals based on our district needs. And so I had 5 goals at the beginning of the school year. When I get into that a little bit more, you'll see that I have identified 4 of them have been met and 1 of them has been exceeded as far as my own self-assessment and the benchmarks that were outlined as far as meeting those goals. The other information that you have in your packet was something that was developed by MASC in 2019. And I think this is just a really good guide for school committees, and it outlines what your role is in the evaluation of the superintendent, but it has some good FAQs that are there and just good reminders of the process, because it is a very lengthy process. And I think that one of the things that's really important to remember is that all of the work that we do here throughout the year, and that are the topics that are on the agenda and are reported out throughout the school year, is all evidence that goes towards meeting these goals, as well as the 4 standards that you have to rate me on, and then the overall rating. And that's just really explained in that MASC document. It also looks at the rubric and helps to guide what the purpose of the rubric is, particularly outlining the expectations for me, what that looks like throughout the year. So it makes it easier, if you're not an educator particularly, to see, well, what is it exactly that I'm evaluating the superintendent on? Things such as empowering others to carry out district initiatives and the work that we do district-wide. The other thing that's in here is the indicator rubric. Now, the rubric itself for administrators and the superintendent, there's 4 standards, there's 20 indicators under those 4 standards, and then there's a total of 39 elements. It's a very lengthy rubric. What the Department of Ed has done is they've said, in order to make it not so daunting for school committees, they 3 years ago developed a pilot rubric, of which we've been engaging in, where they take out all of the elements and really focus on the indicators, and then key indicators that are based on the goals that I've set for myself, and then any others that make sense based on district initiatives. And I think that that has been a tremendous help to really make sense of the process. So you have the indicator rubric in there as well. It definitely makes it more understandable, and it makes it more manageable from where I sit, and then hopefully where you sit as well. So we are now at the process, the 5th step of the process, where I look back at those goals, conduct a self-assessment, like I said, and then look at the 4 different standards. Much of the evidence that goes towards those goals is also evidence that goes towards each of those 4 standards. So what I thought I would do is just go through the goals first, and then stop, see if you have questions or comments, and then move on to the 4 standards, if that works. Okay? All right, so out of the 5 goals, the first goal, which was the professional practice goal, it outlines what those focus indicators were. They're highlighted for you there. But the goal itself was work to implement practices to address issues of educational equity and inclusivity and support the success of all students academically, behaviorally, and social and emotionally. The benchmarks that were set out to meet that goal were completing our plan for success and all of the action plans to go along with that. And as you are aware, on the December 14th school committee meeting, we had a very lengthy presentation, and that plan was presented. The second benchmark was our FY23 budget. It says actually 22, that should say 23 budget that was presented at multiple school committee meetings, as well as the budget subcommittee, where 2 of you met with myself and Mr. Yukna, and then the budget hearing, and then obviously on to town meeting. So those were the benchmarks there to meet that goal. But you also have many things that were listed that we discussed at my February mid-cycle that also went towards meeting that goal. So instead of going through all of those again, because we went through those in February, I thought I would just highlight some things that have gone on since that mid-cycle review in February. So one of them, if it's the third bullet down underneath the additional things that were accomplished towards that particular goal. And that was when we were working with faculty and staff to recognize bias and inequities in curriculum instruction. That has been done through our curriculum review cycles, and that you'll see at the next meeting when we have our visual arts and our ELA curriculum review, you'll hear about how attention to that has been part of their curriculum review process. It's also been a part of our DEI committee and solidifying our goals with that particular committee. Believe it or not, it's taken a lot longer than you would expect to come up with what are all the district goals for diversity, equity, inclusion, and then what is it from a family support side. And when we report out at the June 28th school committee meeting on all of those action plans and the progress that was made, you'll hear more about those specific goals, but that all has been completed since February. And I have to say that that was a really exciting process with that committee and really formulating those goals. They were very thoughtful. It took a lot of other data sources that we used in order to come up with what those goals were. One of the examples that you'll hear a little bit later on is the K-12 Culture and Climate Survey that was administered last year. We reported out on that and the analysis of that in October. The results of that, and then taking that information and looking at it through the lens of equity, we then added additional questions. Under SEL, we took the 5 competencies under CASEL, which are the competencies that have to do with social emotional learning, which get to self-management, self-regulation, things such as that, as well as looking at the inclusivity and looking at multicultural aspects of being really welcome in our classrooms and our schools, to families. What are we doing to really celebrate, acknowledge, and then also do a deeper dive in our data through an equity lens to make sure that we are removing barriers. The MTSS presentation that we had back in the fall, we've continued to work there with the academies. We have the 3-year plan, even at today's administrator meeting, talking about how next year the Burrell and the Ahern will go through and start that 3-year process of the MTS UDL Academy. And it was really exciting to hear them get excited about it. It's a lot of work. It's a huge time commitment. It is a grant that actually Allison has written in order to see if we get accepted into that academy again. If we do not, we are going to support it through other funding sources because it's so important to be able to make that momentum district-wide.
One clarification. Sorry. So it's, our pilot schools were Igo and Taylor,
Correct.
and then Burl Ahern is next.
Yes.
And if all goes well with that and the district still feels that that's the way to go, when would you anticipate high school?
Following year, once Jim has had a chance to transition as the
Better.
principal. They're also in the middle of NEASC, so the timing just
Get
was
it,
off
yeah.
for them. Yeah. So
No, thank you, that's awesome. Okay, so we're looking at kind of like a 2 to 3 year horizon.
Yes.
Yes, and it's actually a 3-year commitment in the academy. So everyone will
Awesome.
be staggered throughout their 3 years, which I think will actually serve us well.
Yeah, that's better, I appreciate it, thank
The,
you.
the resources that it requires from a time standpoint as financial as well, it makes sense to roll it in.
Yeah, it does. No.
And then the NEASC piece, which is
A heavy lift.
a heavy lift.
Right, no, it's best to avoid that. And then I would imagine, I mean, it's different from level to level, but if you have faculty in various buildings, even if they're younger, who have done the training and then have been working with it, it's nice to use them as exemplars.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that was some of the things that Allison was pointing out at our administrative meeting this morning, and having Mike speak to, the middle school and the high school level, was being an administrator that's been involved in every single one of those coaching sessions.
Great.
And what he has gained from it.
Yes, and the one of the things that's really impactful about the way the academies are structured is every teacher in the building participates. So it doesn't, wellness, music, it's everybody.
Good.
And then the coaching academy is an extra layer for people who are in the distributed leadership role. So for us at the elementary, that was our specialists, our math specialists, our literacy specialists, our curriculum directors, and myself, and the principals. So that's an extra layer so that they can continue to support through professional development, not just in their buildings, but across the district.
Okay.
So that cohort will continue to grow to support the rest of the team.
And then at Ahern, who's that?
Who
That-
will it be?
Yeah,
next
sorry.
year?
Yeah.
It will be an administrator, and it will be the literacy specialist, math specialist. Curriculum directors, again, will participate.
Curriculum directors. Okay, thank you.
And one of the reasons here that I've noted that this goal is exceeded is because not only of our plan for success and those, in the budget, the benchmarks and the things that you see listed there, but in addition, we've also engaged district-wide in the SEL Academy through DESE. There has been a lot as far as really focusing on, from the budget side, when we think about the additional social worker, the psychologist, from thinking our special education teachers and co-teaching and all of that fits into this, but then we've had those academies on top of that. The second goal, which is the student learning goal, that one is really centered around MTSS. So it's going to be the same benchmarks that are there and then what actually we've just been speaking about to meet that, as well as thinking about how our survey needed to change with adding those questions. I mean, it was a substantial 2 sections that were added. We had to really weigh out lengthening the survey, but the information is going to be really helpful for us. And we worked to make sure that our participation rate, particularly with students at the high school, like for instance, our seniors before they graduated, ensuring that they were able to engage in that survey, which has been a challenge for us in the past.
Right. What's the participation numbers looking like for you?
I don't have that
okay.
right now. I can tell you because it just closed
Yeah.
within the last week and a half for
Sure.
parents. And we actually had a glitch because of our other surveys that we were doing with students. Our 7th graders didn't take it until just recently.
Okay.
And so we're waiting
all
for
that.
that to close. But parents, it looked like about 1/3 of our parents participated, which is, it's always a challenge with getting surveys completed, particularly this time of year.
Still though, by research standards, that's still triple what you're hoping for. So that's good.
We did lots of reminders.
Yeah, you did. That's good. No, that's still a good response rate given, given what we're asking, so.
The third goal, which is the district improvement goal, this was one that was, as you know, carried over from the previous year, from the challenges that we had with being in a hybrid mode and being able to complete that plan for success. We'll report out on the 28th as far as the action plans, but all of those benchmarks were met as we reported that with the December school committee meeting and those action plans. And those are the template or the model that principals where their school improvement plans are being revised with their school councils right now, and they will be shared with you in the fall.
Okay.
But it's going to follow that same format. So they're going to have it's based off of the district plan, but then what does it look like a little bit different based on the needs for each school, and then action plans to go along with those 4 pillars for each of the schools. And they will present those school improvement plans in the fall. Although we will have 3 out of 5 new principals, it's very important that the principals that have been here are working with those, and we didn't want to present anything in the June time period because we need to wait until the new principals are on board,
Right.
which happens July 1st.
No, that's fair. And that's in keeping with what we've done in the past.
Correct.
That's fine. Okay.
The fourth goal, district improvement, that is really COVID-related, providing leadership, guidance, and support to all of our administrators, faculty, staff during this particular time period, and making sure that we're being proactive and preparing for any unexpected events, any potential unknowns, and then all things that are related to COVID, and then on our school learning models. When we look back over the course of the year from where we were in August, starting the year, as we all know, from mass to then DESE coming in and saying that they were required regardless of what happened at the local level.
Right.
And then all of the health changes that with testing, so a lot has taken place there, lots of communications, again, changes to be able to be responsive to those needs.
Right.
Happy to say that we're in a very different place as we end the school year than we were at the very beginning of the school year. Just even having graduation on Sunday and seeing everyone together, it was wonderful and it went really well. But I think that was just a very marked change when we think about being able to go back to pre-COVID, back in the venue where we were, and to be able to celebrate our graduates the way that we had before COVID. The testing, we've continued to do that. I mean, even as an example, Wednesdays, we update our COVID numbers. So right now, district-wide, I know that's not on the update, but we do have 14 cases across the district. We have more of a hit. It's like they're taking a school at a time, if you will. Like, for instance, it's the Taylor's turn.
Okay.
Right now, they have 7 cases where when you look at like the high school or Burrell, they have 1 case. But it's very different than where we were before, for sure.
And how's it been with, of late in the, or I guess this spring, how's it been with staff? Have you had faculty that have gotten hit again, or?
We have. I mean, staffing has been something all year with, where we know subs are at a premium.
Right.
But I just really have to commend the principals and what they've done to be able to provide the coverage and make it work. It's been a challenge for them, and they've been able to do it, but it's not been from an extraordinary amount of work on their part to be able to cover classes.
Here. And I also recall, right, didn't we address sub pay earlier in the year,
We did,
which, you know,
yes.
that was necessary.
And right now, where we have college students home that also
That-
help out with subbing, that's also a help.
Yeah, as we've seen at a few events, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's good, okay. And then, no, and then lastly, related to that, is it, has it still been, well, just curious, at some point, doesn't need to be now, but be curious to get your principal's collected take on how the coverage is working within the building when they are short, because I know that's always a potential area for friction, not that we've necessarily felt it, but, yeah.
The building that has it probably the most challenging
Right.
is the middle school.
Okay,
And it's not just because of size, because the high school is, you know, basically the same size. The difference is based on teachers' schedules, if teachers have gone and covered classes for other teachers, so they have a little bit more flexibility
Sure.
with scheduling than when you, particularly if you look at 5th and 6th grade where it's an elementary model.
Right.
So there's not as much flexibility at the middle school as there is at the high school when it comes to covering a class.
yeah, you're right.
So that part has been challenging. The other piece to meet that goal, I think, is really worth noting, and that's the support for families through all the different workshops that we've had this school year. I've listed a number of them there that have taken place, whether it's helping support students in just getting back into school and what the pandemic and the impact it has had on them and on families. Also on managing grief and loss. We know that as a community, we have had a number of losses, and being able to support our students, whether it's through our mental health supports, our families through outreach, and our guidance and adjustment counselors and social workers working with wraparound services with families as well, providing these particular workshops. I attended every one of them. I found that I had a takeaway from all of them. And then we're working next year to provide even more, and that's coming out of our DPH grant, as well as the SEL grant through DESE to provide more services for students, as we know through the budget when we think about the social worker, the grant-funded positions, the psychologist moving from a 0.5 to full-time, really leveraging those grants, but at the same time, what can we do to continue to support families through things such as these workshops?
Is there, was it, given the format and the flexibility of formatting with the workshops, was there any way to track attendance, or, I mean, I guess it's hard to tell if people viewed it afterwards, I suppose, but,
Those weren't recorded.
okay.
So we were able to get an idea, the ones like through the Norfolk County DA's office,
Sure.
like when I participated that and send that out, they could say, oh, yes, we had a number of Foxborough people that were online, but I don't have an exact number. The ones that we did through Dr. Epstein, we knew that we had more elementary parents on that one than we did with secondary
Sure.
parents. So we did have numbers for those, and we wouldn't see the numbers we were hoping to, but at the same time, we knew that we were offering it for parents, and it was available to them.
Right. And yes, speaking to a number of people in town, it seems that even if they can't attend, the fact that it's being offered at least spurs a conversation in homes a lot as well. So there's kind of ripple effects to that, so.
And, you know, and one of the ones that's not even listed here that's a support is when we think about, just even recently that we spoke about at the middle school. And when we had the parent who had lost a child to suicide, and we had the parent session, I went to that one. I know, Brent, I saw you there as well, with the dinner conversations that we heard from students that went home and had with parents, because 5th through 8th grade had sessions on that topic, which was really looking at bullying and suicide and, you know, what supports are there. And then that was followed up that night with parents. So that one's like another one that's not even listed here.
No, you're right, that was there.
So on the 5th goal, which is an other goal, this was to successfully conduct and conclude negotiations with our bargaining units that were up this year. We had 6 of them, and we have ratified all 6 of those, which were our teachers, our educational assistants, food service, secretaries, transportation, and extended day. That took a considerable amount of time to bargain all of those. I thank all of you for being school committee reps on all of those different ones too, and taking your turn, because that was time out of your day to do those and get to a successful ratification in the end. So happy that that goal was met, and it was met before the end of the school year. I know that there's a lot of districts that I've heard that are still working a lot. Had teachers and educational assistants, they're all on the same schedule that we are, and they're still working to ratify theirs. So we're thankful to our association and to all those that participated to help meet that goal successfully.
Excellent.
So any questions on goals or topics of conversation?
I have just
Please.
a question.
Let 'em fly.
Collective bargaining, yes. Another significant activity in the second half of the year has been finding replacements for 3 school heads. Would it be useful to include that in here under other goals as well?
I think where I had said a lot of this is going to be the same evidence for the standards, it is listed to meet the second standard under management and operations. So it's pretty outlined there. So as long as you're okay with knowing that it's under the standard,
Under the standard versus the goal.
under the goal, if you're okay with
Fine.
that,
Yeah.
then it definitely was a big goal.
Yes,
It was a
yes.
goal that we didn't know we were going to have
Right.
for all of those. Some of those positions we knew,
Right.
but we didn't know all of them. So
Right.
that was a goal that happened during the school year.
Yes, okay. I appreciate
An
that.
emergent
Thank you.
goal.
Yeah.
No, actually, thank you, Rob, because that's something for us to all mind as we write up our blurbs later. No, does anybody else have any questions on any of the goals? I'm more curious than anything, because, and this is more just reflective, is, and forgive my commentary with it, but you seem to be somebody who takes on more goals than is required.
Maybe.
And you've had conversations about that, but you always meet it, so it's wonderful. But how did this feel? Was it, I mean, in terms of the goals, did it feel like,
We
appropriate
were
level?
having a conversation, myself and Allison and Corey, actually, earlier today, and talking about this, and then even at the admin meeting too, but reflecting back on what has taken place this year, I'm really impressed with everyone and the work that's been done, because all of these goals could not be accomplished without the extraordinary efforts of all of the people I have the privilege of working with. I mean, you see within the rubric so much where it talks about empowering others and working with them. It takes all of us in order to be able to accomplish this. So to answer your question, it was a lot, but it was worth it. And I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished this year.
Well, for my own part, and we can talk more as the evaluation process continues, but 3, 4, and 5 were going to be necessary regardless, and I'm very pleased that through big heart and appropriately placed stubbornness, I think that you kept 1 and 2 in there, because those could be stretched out, and that those are those are things we're choosing to do, not things that are necessarily thrust upon us. And so it's one of the things I'm very proud of for the district, that people, that we all, and you, kept that goal in there, both those goals, 1 and 2, in there, and we're marching forward with it, despite the fact that we knew, and we all had agreed back in the summer that the priority was coming out of COVID gracefully and continuing to manage that as it unfolded, but also to give kids the services they needed moving out of it. So,
And I think, too, it really has been a year where we've talked about this repeatedly with teachers and with administrators, is we thought this year was going to be easier than last year.
How naive we were.
We were so naive.
Right?
And we thought it
We
was going
actually
to
thought
be
that.
easier for students and families, too.
Right.
And it really hasn't been, in that the disruption and not having typical school years
Right.
in the last 3 years has been much more disruptive than what we could have ever imagined.
Yes.
And it has been the teachers and staff working really hard to meet the needs of students and to meet their social emotional needs first,
Yeah.
so then the academics can take place. Because we know that if we're not having a safe, nurturing environment for students and supporting them, then the learning won't take place. And our teachers and staff have done, and our administrators have done an extraordinary job of that. And it's been hard on families too, in that, I talked about at the beginning of the year, the importance of students needing structure and to be back.
yeah.
But at the same time, it was really difficult for them to have that structure and to attend to a more traditional year than what they had experienced in the last 18 months prior.
Here, here.
And I would just add, Dr. Burdos, today when we were meeting with elementary and talking about the MTSS work, we talked about our PLC structure, and next year,
Okay.
having a rotation so that we focus on literacy for one, and then math, and then SEL, but then we added a 4th one to really look at things like self-regulation and behavior, where we know we've had some lagging skills, so that we can collectively say, okay, what strategies do you have? We can bring in our mental health people and our OT and people who have those strategies to really help with the regulation stations. That's not something that we talked about in such a pronounced way pre-COVID. It was there, but now we have to proactively address it and take the time. So we're really fortunate that we had that structure coming in, and that we have that mechanism to really take concentrated time on it on a regular cycle to really look at it. So it's a really good point, and we already have the plan in place to move forward with it because we've done so much work on MTSS.
And what are the 3 again? I mean, I know you have a couple. But
We have math, literacy, SEL,
That's it.
and then this is behavior and self-regulation.
Thank you. Any other comments on goals or things stemming from that from the committee? Okay.
Okay, so you see a number of indicators under the first standard, which is instructional leadership. Standard 1, the focus indicators were curriculum and instruction. As far as what the Department of Education had stated should be focus indicators. So I definitely focused on those, but you'll see that also a couple other indicators you have evidence for, which had to do with educator evaluation and then informed decision-making as well. So when I think about the curriculum and instruction, kind of the bigger pieces here, so implementing the Panorama Social Emotional Learning Screener was a big piece. That's going to be a really important piece of data for us going forward. Looking at that along with those questions from the K-12 Insight Survey, which is perception data, but seeing how they connect or disconnect, and to help at the same time with our equity lens and how we're supporting all students. So those are really important new data sources that we'll have, that we've implemented this year, that we'll be able to use as we go forward. Other things that are new, the FastBridge, which is the dyslexia screener. So that's information that's more data sources that we'll have that we haven't had in the past. And then just the work under the academies, again, through MTSS, the Universal Design for Learning, as well as the Social Emotional Learning Academy. That all plays into curriculum instruction when we really look at the whole child. You see a number of things that are listed there. You've heard me talk about back in February, the participation I've had in the regional consultancy group with the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. That has continued to be a really good form of support and professional development. That stemmed out of the 3 years of the induction program. What MASS saw was the need for superintendents that were new after 3 years. Some of the consultancy protocols that we use, problems of practice, it was a great support to really problem solve, because I have Dr. Mello as the assistant superintendent, but as a superintendent, her role is still very different than mine. And to be able to have that with other superintendents across the state, that has been really beneficial. And I was able to benefit Maureen LaCroix, who you met, Dr. LaCroix, who was my coach back during the induction program. She ran our regional consultancy group. I had new superintendents from across the state in that, but that was really worthwhile to be able to participate in that. I also learned as part of that, my entry plan here that was presented to you a couple of years ago, my plan is the model that they're using for new superintendents in that induction program continuing. So Foxborough is out there with a lot of other superintendents, which is nice.
I can attest to that. It came up at a recent DESE event that we were at, that a lot of chatter about your plan. Well done, Dr. Meadows.
But you took your induction very seriously. We've all benefited from it, so I'm glad other districts are as well.
The other professional development activities, you see some of those listed as examples that I've engaged in for my own professional growth, which kind of falls under a number of different standards. But that impacts curriculum and instruction, because it impacts when I'm doing those building visits monthly with all of our principals and walking through classrooms, helping them with educator evaluation when we're having conversations about instruction and supporting teachers. So it's all threaded throughout. Under educator evaluation, we did implement a new technology platform, which is Perform. So that's a digital notebook, if you will. So all of our educator evaluation has been housed through Baseline Edge for the last 5, 6+ years. We moved over because that particular company went defunct and we needed a new platform. Perform is part of PowerSchool, so that's been a really easy transition. But again, it's a time when we've been able to regroup. I did that with our educator evaluation working group that I had led before, reconvened them, went back, we implemented student and staff survey feedback as part of that, and again, just reassessing some of the forms that we use and what's valuable, what's not been valuable, and it's a good time to kind of check in on what's working well and what could be improved.
With changing the platforms, what happens to the historical data?
We have exported all of that.
Okay.
Erin has all of it in files, so we can access that.
Okay.
But when it comes to summative evaluations, those are all within every educator's personnel file. So we have those in
Okay.
hard copy. And if we ever needed to go back to anything such as observations, we do have all that information exported, but it was not imported into Perform.
That's good. But it's there.
It's there.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good summary of Standard 1.
All right. Any questions on Standard 1? No. Let's keep on trucking.
Standard 2, I'll speak to that, I think, quickly, because some of it is what we've already spoken about. When we think about management and operations, the focus indicators were environment, human resource management and development, and then also law, ethics, and policies. When you think about the negotiations with our 6 units, that definitely falls under this standard. And then, Rob, what you were talking about before, the critical key leadership positions. When you have 3 out of 5 principals going through all of that process, as we know is a very lengthy process, very involved, and then also assistant superintendent, and then we are still working, we actually just reposted the assistant principal position for the high school today. So when you think about those key leadership positions, which are key, And then in addition to 22 retirements and replacing, because I interview every single candidate that we hire, whether they're an educational assistant teacher. So there's that piece as well. And that's just retirements. So any other positions we have, if people are moving into other, sometimes, we've had some people move out of state, as an example. I can think two off the top of my head. So positions that have become open. So it's not just 22 positions. There are many more. We're going to see a lot of new faces, particularly at the high school next year. So that's pretty much management and operations, along with all things COVID that falls under that as
That.
well.
There's a little bit there.
Is COVID going to become a new category here?
I hope not. I hope it becomes in the rearview mirror.
I hope so too.
Ditto.
But again, when we think about the budget management piece, all the work that we've done through our Plan for Success with redesigning special education programs, thinking about leveraging positions to better support students, whether it's hiring additional special education teachers versus educational assistants, all that's been through the budget process, and being able to bring students back and build those programs or redesign those programs back within the district, that all falls here, and working closely with our Director of Student Services as well. Standard 3, family and community engagement. The focus indicator there was communication. In addition to the things that you see go out to families or the events that we host, it's also important for me to really focus on that indicator of sharing responsibility. So that's an added one there that's not out of the Department of Ed as an indicator here. My work with the YMCA on the Child Protection Committee, working with Board of Incorporators. They're in the middle of doing their new strategic plan, being part of that in a focus group with the Y this year. That actually was a great opportunity to be there with that focus group, where we had people from rec, the police department, the fire department, from our own wellness staff here, myself, other administrators, and all of their focus groups, because we partner so much with the Y, and they're a great resource for us. So having that opportunity to work closely with them is something that I do enjoy. And I've also participated in a video series on child protection, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. And so they had a 6-part series. And so myself and Debbie Spinelli, actually, we did the first one, which had to do with all of the training and work we've done in child protection and recognizing signs of child sexual abuse through the Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training, and how it's a commitment from Foxborough, the town, but how we are really a leader in that when the Y in Foxborough with other Ys that look to Foxborough, and how they've partnered with the school system and the town to really take on that commitment to train everyone. And things that go along with principal searches and the focus groups, whether it's with the family focus groups or the staff focus groups. Allison and I tag teamed all of those. One of us would be the recorder, one of us would be the talker, and really getting all of the stakeholder feedback through all of those focus groups. So that's another way of engaging with community in a different way. One of the things, did you remember that we did the workshop with Dorothy Presser?
Yeah.
When you think back to that one, that was back in October. I think how that was really a helpful workshop to engage in. We had changes. When you think about even some of the things on the agenda here and how that has worked as far as you as a school committee and then us together collectively, and some of the positive changes. It's something as simple as information only or action required on the agenda. I think that's been tremendously helpful from a planning, when I'm working with you as chair and planning the agendas and
Absolutely.
communicating that out to the community as well.
I'm just stunned that that was October 21 and not October of 2019. That feels like a long time ago. That was very valuable, though.
And the last standard, professional culture, cultural proficiency, was one of the focus indicators along with shared vision. Cultural proficiency, I think that the work that we're doing within equity definitely comes under this area. The topic of disproportionality, where we're really looking at our data from all different aspects, and what does that look like? At the same time, we know that our special education numbers are higher than what we want them to be. We know that MTSS is going to be one of the levers to be able to work on those numbers by providing those supports more proactively in a way of removing barriers. The shared vision piece, the plan for success, clearly that falls under that with those 4 pillars of success. But I bring up one of the examples here, and what also for cultural proficiency that I think falls under here is one of your functions, obviously, is policy. So when we think back to the transportation policy, the number of meetings that were there and really meeting the needs of families. So I wanted to make sure and highlight that as well, because that's an example of meeting families' needs and the work that you did as a committee, and that, you know, we supported as an administration to be able to bring that policy change forward.
Excellent.
Shared vision, the action plans, again, we will report out on those at the last meeting in June. It's not the next meeting because there's a very full agenda next week at that regular school committee meeting. So there's probably more evidence that I can provide, and if there's anything that you think of that's not here that you want provided, I'm happy to do that. I'd also like to schedule, I met with Michelle this morning, the individual meetings with you to be able to answer any individual questions that you have, or if you saw something here that you personally just wanted further clarification on, I can answer those in individual meetings to help you as you complete your individual evaluations for the composite in the end.
Nice. Any questions for any of the standards, or going back to goals from anyone? Okay. And then can we talk timeline together, all of us, in terms of that? You know, like, I need institutional memory help from Mr. Canfield, Mr. Pearson, you, Amy, Janet. Our timeline for, we want to, sorry, is it the last day in June that we want to have this together done and to you? Is that, am I correct?
Two things. One, we'll put as an agenda item at next week's meeting.
Yes.
Just if there's any further clarification, what has historically happened in the past because of spending this much time at this meeting.
Yeah.
And then the individual meetings, that one ends up being a quicker agenda item just
It is.
because of the other pieces. It's really more about giving you enough time to complete your individual ones for the chair from the year to put the composite together and have it in time for the July meeting where you'll want your executive session and then the public meeting.
Right. But we'll want to have that well in advance of the July meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, okay.
Richard, you did it last year, so I don't know if you want to speak
Do you
from.
remember?
Yeah, I was trying to remember, so I think we had like an end of June deadline and gave
Yeah, so,
the first 10 days of July to,
yeah, we did it.
That seems right.
Yeah, so I think I asked for everything by June 30th.
Okay.
And compiled it, and then we presented it, reviewed it at the executive session in July.
Okay.
Um,
Is that comfortable
When-
for committee members?
Refresh my recollection, I was trying to look at my calendar. July, when's the July meeting?
It's the 12th?
It's the 11th. It's a little
11th,
bit earlier
okay.
than
All
usual.
right,
so
good.
that
used to
you
be
might-
like the
Sounds
19th or
okay.
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
July 11,
So
yeah.
how long does it usually take to compile? Once we're done with what we have to do, how long does it take realistically to compile it?
It personally didn't take me that long to compile. A couple hours maybe to cut and
Okay.
paste and come up with highlights that were representative of everybody's input.
Yeah.
As long as you get everything in digital format, right?
Right.
That's
So-
the key.
So you did last year, I did the year before, right?
Right.
Correct, that's
And then
right.
and then you'll do this, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
was here,
apologize,
which-
Rob, I'm
which chair is
mixing up
going-
my
yeah, that's
years.
good.
Right.
No, that's
We
right.
were, we,
It's the
we
incoming.
changed that kind of mid-process last year, because originally you were gonna do it.
Right.
And then we came back to it, right, to what we had been doing.
So you did it last year, right?
Yes.
I did it the year before, and if everyone submits in digital format, it's much easier to cut and paste.
Yeah.
So when I did it, it was, say, I would agree, a couple hours, because I was able to cut and
Right.
paste, use the words of the committee.
So I'm just looking at, so we've got, our meeting is on Monday, the 11th. How far in advance after the cut and the paste and compiling, does it need to go out to the committee? Is
So we
that-
can all review it
So we
ahead
can
of
review it ahead of time. So is that what, having it go out to us typically like the Thursday before?
Or if you're reviewing it in executive session prior, like you have your individual ones, and then you have your executive session.
On the 11th.
On the 11th?
Right. Like, I don't recall us sending it out.
We didn't get it beforehand, we
compiled
just
one.
got it at that
During the
meeting.
executive.
think
That's
so.
what I was trying to kind of.
I think so.
Let me ask-
I kind of remember it that way too, yeah.
Is that, do folks, I mean, what's your sensibility?
then-
Do you want it, do you want it sometime ahead so that you can come and chat about it at the meeting? Rather than reviewing it at the meeting? I'm not pushing, I'm just asking.
I'm not saying that we need to change how we've done it.
That's okay,
I
I'm
think-
just asking.
I was just trying to remember.
Well, yeah, first we have to remember what the heck we did, but yeah. yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
so, and that's where, just looking, because the week before is the
Right.
week of 4th of
Right.
July, so just trying to kind of, from a realistic standpoint,
Okay.
how far in advance does it need to be?
So Brent, it's really kind of
I
going
think,
towards.
I think the key is for the chair. So I think for the chair,
Right.
when are you gonna have, if you give us until the 29th, I'm just making that date up. If we
Right.
have till the 29th to submit you written copy of each of ours, is it enough time between 29 and 11 for you to compile?
That part's very comfortable, what I was trying to come up with, and maybe I'll communicate in a let's not reply all type email if I can get it done. I would, my sensibility is that I would like to get it done further ahead and send it out, but I don't know how good I'll be at it, so. Is that okay, and then checking in with admin, if the compiled report is done prior to the 11th, that's something I can email out? Or hand deliver, is that better? We can talk too.
It's hand
Usually
delivered.
hand-delivered.
Then let's do that.
The only question I don't, when you compile, you would only be sharing your compiled version. Like, I wouldn't
Correct.
be looking at Michelle and Sarah. and
No,
Richard's.
it wouldn't give you wouldn't do the raw data.
Correct, okay.
But it's easier to compile when it's been all typed in versus handwritten.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And as long as we have the raw,
I'll send this document
you.
to you in a Word document, so you
Thank you.
have it all there. And then that way, for your own individual ones, if you have that, then when we meet,
right,
we can go over if you have anything before, if that helps, to send
Thank
it to the chair. And then, once you compile it, you'll have all of it electronically.
great. And there'll be one master form that gets done that is the representative.
Yeah.
And I can look at last year's and go off, pattern it off of what you two gentlemen had done prior. Okay,
So
that's fine.
what is the submit by date that you want? Because we have a meeting on the 28th,
It's Wednesday's the 29th, we have a meeting on the 28th.
Tuesday.
Is that too much of a turnaround? Do you want to make it the 30th?
I don't,
That's one day,
Yeah.
so. I don't think we're
I'm
gonna.
good, yeah.
I mean, the 29th
29th is
works,
fine.
if that's what you, because we can
Yeah.
start now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's do the 29th if we
I was
can.
just throwing the date out, so. yeah.
And see, first movers, I feel like I'm getting such feedback on this microphone.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. So we'll hustle Dr. Berdos to get on your calendar.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any other questions moving forward? All right. So then the next item is mostly, I had asked to be put on the agenda, if only to keep my head straight and to see if there's anything that we might have missed. And if there's any initial questions that come up. My idea was to put an item on the agenda saying, hey, this is what we're going to discuss next time. So that if there's any things that just come up, all of us collectively are kind of on alert that we want to send admin questions in advance so that, they can be as prepared as we would like prior. And so we said next meeting is quite full. And can we, do we mind just with admin's help reviewing the things that we know are on the agenda?
Sure.
Including, I appreciate it.
So we're going to celebrate and recognize our retirees that are able to join us at the beginning of the meeting, which is always fun.
Awesome.
And our teaching and learning highlight is going to be our Invention Convention awardees from the Ahern. I won't say anything more than that. That's your teaser.
It's a good
And
teaser.
then the ELA curriculum review, the visual arts curriculum review, our guidance update. If you remember at the last meeting, we weren't able to have that. That's been pushed forward, so we have that one as well with Laureen White and Diana Myers-Pakla. And then the PTO and PAC highlights from the year, giving them each a couple of minutes to be able to highlight all of their efforts and any recognition that they chose to do.
Nice. Thanks. Is there anything coming up in that springs anything to mind from any committee members?
It's gonna be a long meeting.
It's going to be a long meeting. Perhaps when we meet in July, we can look at the things that are on the calendar.
And I think it's important to note why it's the way it is.
Yeah.
Because we're here at Town Hall, we're competing for space. And that's with the selectmen. And so what the availability was
Right.
for the Tuesday evenings, the second meeting falls after school. School is out the 17th.
Right.
So those curriculum reviews, teachers and people are gone.
Right.
So we have to put them on the 14th.
Right.
Instead of waiting till the 28th.
Right. That's fine. All right. Well,
I
thank
love a good long meeting.
Yes, you do. You're very good at them. No, and we'll get a lot done, so that's wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And then last on the agenda is any other matters that have come up that we want to hear about prior to our meeting next Tuesday? Any other matters, Dr. Mello?
I don't think so.
Dr. Berdos?
I would just say that I thought graduation was great, and congratulations to you, Rob, and to Michelle for your
Absolutely.
graduates. So it was all, I think, well done, and all of the students and the speeches and everything, it went really, really well. So I hope as you're done with having your last graduate,
I am.
you are going to be an empty nester going forward. And then
Can't have
Michelle,
it soon enough.
and Michelle having your first to graduate.
I'm not done. That is definitely true.
Congratulations.
Yes. So much about the parents and the support with the kids to get them there.
You're here.
100%.
I would just add, I really appreciate all of the effort that everybody put into the last 2 weeks of school for the seniors with all the events and the different nights and, you know, setting up, taking down, all of that stuff. I thought it was, I felt closer to it this time than I did in previous graduations, but I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort, and I'm sure that they all rested well Sunday evening. I hope they did, but I really, as a parent, very much appreciated all of the work that everybody at the schools and facilities and everything put into making that go off well, so.
You're here.
You know, and a big thank you to the students too, because they do a lot of things behind, all the class officers do a lot of stuff for their
Absolutely
speeches
do.
and organizing and galvanizing themselves. And when seniors get to the end like that, they can be a little tuckered out of 13 years of education. And they come through too for it, to make it a great day for everyone, really. It's really important for them to keep the focus, because things can go haywire. But it's just great for them to participate too, really is.
Any other matters? Ms. Ladani?
So everything's going great at the rec. We had first farmers market last week, and everyone's looking forward to the Founder's Day this weekend. And that's it, like all happy, you know me. All the happy stuff going on around town.
Ms. Raymond, any other matters?
No, I think echo what everyone else has said. Graduation was fabulous. It was a great day. Leading up to it was great. I personally feel very surreal, so it doesn't feel like it's all real yet. At some point it will sink in. But I just think kudos to the teachers, administration, and everything, that we are where we are. There's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this year. And when Dr. Burgess and I were talking this morning, it's just thinking back at some of the challenges we had at the beginning of the year that we didn't expect. It's just, it seems so long ago, just the September, because there has been so much that has happened. And so kudos to everybody, you know. Well, we're at the finish line, and thank
We're
you.
there, and we won't trip over it.
Okay, it was positive, positive.
Very positive, very positive. Any other matters, Mr. Pearson?
Nothing.
All I have is I just want to thank, again, everybody in Foxborough Music, the Music Association, for putting on the concerts this spring. And it was hard to tell that they did a year of music on Zoom. It sounded great, and they've gotten, the sound is all back, and it's just wonderful. Also, I think we have concerts on the Commons starting on Thursday for folks to go out and hear the band. And
The jazz.
Jazz,
is
yes.
doing-
Directly after the farmer's market.
That's
yeah.
right. And then lastly, in advance, thank you to all the faculty for all the work they're going to put in the next few weeks to get grades done, and students for taking their finals and exiting with grace. So that's all I have. With that, anyone want
Move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor? Surprise.
There we go.
All right. We're in adjournment.